Hi, thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope everyone is doing really well. So a few weeks ago, I put out a video talking about fear foods, and I have been trying to do a lot of what I eat in the day videos where I incorporate a lot of my fear foods. And today I want to talk about why it is so important to start incorporating fear foods into your recovery journey. So the first reason is because of the concept of avoidance. When you avoid things or you restrict things, the craving and the urge for those things actually becomes stronger. A lot of people develop a form of binge eating because they restrict, and they just get to a point where they can't restrict anymore, and so they just give into everything and they consume everything and anything all at once, and it becomes a regular pattern of extreme restriction, and then you just can't take it anymore, and you have all these cravings and you want everything, and at the same time you don't want anything, but you just feel like you can't fight it anymore, and so you feel completely out of control and you just binge. I know how that feels. I restricted for a very long time, and then it got to the point where I knew I couldn't be this strict anymore, but I didn't know how to eat food in a healthy way, so it turned into binging. As you avoid things and you restrict things, the desire for those things can increase. And at the same time, because usually the things we crave are the things we fear, that fear increases. It's not just the fear of the food, but it's that fear of losing control. If you've ever experienced a binge after extreme restriction, I think you can definitely relate to the feeling of, I never want to feel that out of control again, which makes you restrict, which makes you come back around full circle and binge out and lose control again. And you feel that feeling, and it's not a fun feeling to feel. As you start to eat more of your fear foods and become comfortable with eating fear foods, you're starting to break down the idea of good versus bad food. Food does not hold a moral standing. You are not good because you eat good food, and you are not a bad person because you've eaten bad food. It's important to throw out that labeling system and just see it as food. The third reason is it teaches you that there's no such thing as perfect eating. There are a lot of people, myself included, who feel like I need to eat perfectly in order to recover. Perfection is what got us into this mess in the first place. So let's, again, throw out that idea of perfection. There is no perfect way of eating, and there is no perfect way of doing recovery. Fear foods are fear foods for many reasons. One reason being, we feel as though if we eat it, we are losing grasp on our perfection. We restrict to be perfect. We restrict to eat perfectly. And if I eat these bad junk foods, then suddenly I am no longer good, and I am no longer perfect, and I am not eating perfectly. These are labels that we are choosing to put on ourselves, and by putting us inside this labeled little box, we are not able to branch out and be free. So by incorporating fear foods, you're breaking down, first, that moral standing of good versus evil foods, but it's also breaking down the notion that there is such a thing as perfect eating. Fourth reason why it is so important to incorporate fear foods into your recovery is it creates a more relaxed environment around food. Now, that might sound like, what? How am I supposed to be relaxed around food? Let me tell you, when you're first starting out incorporating fear foods, relaxation is the last thing on the agenda. The first thing is, I just need to eat this fear food. But the more you do it and the more you make it part of your just natural behavior and your pattern, it becomes more relaxed. You become more relaxed around food. And that is one of the goals, is just to be like, okay with eating, be okay with food. Every time you eat a fear food, you are mending your relationship with food. You are saying that I am okay with food. I am okay with all foods. All foods can be safe foods. All foods can be delicious foods. All foods can be good foods. All foods can be healthy. I can still be healthy and eat a mass variety of foods. You might be a little skeptical going into it thinking, how am I supposed to feel relaxed around eating fear foods? It comes with time, but it does create a more relaxed environment when it comes to all foods. And now I want to talk about some tips to aid you in slowly incorporating fear foods into your recovery. Emphasis on slowly. I feel like I'm going to repeat that word many, many times. And I do this because it is so important to keep this in mind. It is a slow process, okay? It has taken me years to get to the point where I feel okay eating fear foods, like true fear foods. Slow and steady wins the race. This is kind of a given. Figure out what your fear foods are. In one of my previous videos on fear foods, I talked about how in my mind, I thought I only had a few fear foods, but when I truly sat down and started writing them out, I'm talking pages of food that I'm afraid to eat. But when I really thought about it, I was like, I am afraid of those foods because there's always a bit of hesitation before eating those foods. Step one, literally make a list. Write down your fear foods. Lay it out in front of you so you know what you're dealing with, know what you have to work with. Once you have your list, you basically have your map in front of you of the next step, and the next step is to start eating them. The best way to do that is to pair them with your safe foods. We all know what safe foods are, the foods that we feel safe eating. So if you pair a scary food with a safe food, cancel each other out, and there's no calories. Easy. There we go. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so pair your fear foods with foods that you like, that you enjoy, that you like cooking, that you like sharing with other people. Third step is probably one of the more difficult ones because it's one thing to be able to change your physical behavior. It is quite another to change your mind and the way you think about food. For a while, I was eating fear foods because I felt I had to, but I wasn't doing anything to change the way I viewed those fear foods. They were still fear foods because I wasn't challenging that idea. I was eating them because I had to, but I wasn't challenging what that made me feel, think, and believe about those foods. Challenge the eating disorder by challenging your mindset. This is obviously the hardest one because there's not a lot of physical things that you can do. It's more of just like mental. It takes a lot of patience and practice to be able to sit down and in silence and have a conversation with yourself inside your head or out loud, whatever floats your boat. You need to learn to distinguish between the eating disorder's voice and your voice when it comes to a fear food. So let's take pizza, which is a huge fear food for a lot of people. It's also quite delicious. Let's say you have 3 slices of pizza and a side salad because you like salad. Salad is safe, so you've paired them together. You have to sit there and you have to think to yourself, what am I saying? What is the eating disorder saying? The eating disorder is probably going to say you can't eat that because it's going to make you fat. It's going to make you feel terrible. You'll be terrible. You're a horrible person if you want to eat that. That's the eating disorder's voice. What does your voice say? Your voice says, eating this pizza is going to help me progress in recovery. It's going to create a better life for me, a healthier life for me, a healthy relationship with food, a healthy relationship with myself, a healthy relationship with others. And I'm going to eat this despite that voice. It's important to separate the eating disorder's voice from your voice. The voice of fear and the voice of reason. I think a lot of people just say, ignore the voice of the eating disorder. Well, you can only do that for so long. The eating disorder's voice does have a way of getting louder and louder with time. It's important to actually hear the eating disorder's voice, not necessarily listen to it. Hear it. Because if you can hear the eating disorder's voice, but you can still have a rational conversation with your voice, you're able to recognize the contradictions between fear and reason. Next thing is I plan ahead. I give myself plenty of time to prepare mentally for an upcoming fear food. It puts your mind at ease and it helps you talk yourself through what is about to happen. You're doing something that most people just do and take for granted, but for you, it is a life-changing moment. Every time you eat a fear food, it is life-changing because it is the betterment of your future life. Slowly over time, decrease the amount of time between fear foods. Don't go from once a month to every single day, because that's not mentally healthy. So I came across this worksheet, and I'm going to link it down below, and it is wonderful. It writes out all of these steps. It like breaks it down, and it's like fill in the blank, and it helps you with learning to listen to your own voice, hearing your own voice. Like, it shows you how to rationalize through this kind of process. It helps you with this preparation for a fear food. So I will link that down below. It is great. I love it because it's a written representation of like what I'm trying to say, but I'm not very good at that. So it's like, here, it's written out. Someone smarter and better than me has done it. The biggest reason why I think it is so important to incorporate fear foods into your recovery. To refer back to something I mentioned in a previous video, food freedom. Again, I don't know if this is a real thing, but I definitely think it should be. Food freedom is to be able to enjoy all foods when faced with them in an unplanned environment. So I want to be able to not be afraid when someone offers me a taste of something, or I'm at like a wedding and there's something new that I've never tried before, I'm afraid of, and I want to be able to try it and not think there are going to be negative consequences to that. If offered something, I want to be able to eat it without the fear of this means I'm losing control over something. I want to be able to say, I like these things, and not be ashamed of saying that I like these things. These are the reasons why eating fear foods are so important. It gives you freedom. It gives you freedom in an area of your life that people just do. Like, I know we're talking about something so mundane, eating. It is bigger than that. And I want to create freedom around that mundane, everyday thing that we call eating. I have read so many articles about fear foods, and it's about taking the information and applying it in a way that makes sense to your life. And this is what makes sense to my life. It might make sense to your life. It might not. So read, research, learn, and then apply. So thank you so much for clicking on the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. If you did not enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs down. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed already. I really do appreciate it. And if you are not subscribed already, maybe think about subscribing. That'd be awesome. If you have any video suggestions, comments, questions, anything at all, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye!